Hello, and welcome to the Institute for Transformational Thinking. I'm Ben Decker, the Director of Education here at the Institute, and I am so excited to present today's online class, Lead With Me, a discussion on transformational leadership. We have two extraordinary mindfulness meditation teachers joining us today. First, we have Ora Nadrich. She is the founder and president of the Institute for Transformational Thinking. She's a thought coach, a mindfulness meditation teacher, and author of Says Who? How one simple question can change the way you think forever. Thank you for being here, Ora.
Hi, Ben. Thank you so much for moderating.
My pleasure. Next, we have Dr. Ronald Alexander. Ron is an executive leadership coach and communication core creativity consultant with a private psychotherapy practice in Santa Monica, California. He's the founder and executive director of the Open Mind Training Institute, on the advisory council for the Institute for Transformational Thinking, and author of Wise Mind, Open Mind, Finding Purpose and Meaning in Times of Crisis, Loss, and Change. Ron, it's an honor to have you join us today.
Good morning, Ben. Good morning, Ora. Lovely to be here with you.
Excellent. So welcome, of course, to all of our students and participants to this very special online seminar on transformational leadership. Lead with me. Let's get started, okay? So, of course, we would love to hear from both of you, Ora and Ron. We're going to be covering the three areas of transformational leadership. One, the importance of transformational leadership in the world today. Two, embodying the qualities of a transformational leader. And three, confidently leading transformational change in your life. So let's begin. The importance of transformational leadership in the world today. Ron, you're a leadership consultant, executive leadership coach. How do you define leadership?
Well, I think one of the most important qualities of transformational leadership is that leaders need to lead from their core, from their essence. And leaders need to also be visionaries. They need to be able to have a vision of the future where they're pulling either their organization or their team or their company or their government or their state, and they're pulling it with this creative transformational energy from the moment into the future. And that's where the importance of vision comes in. And transformational leaders need to have a capacity to not only be deeply present in the moment, but also to be able to pull and step out and stand out ahead of themselves, pulling in and leading towards a more vibrant and clearly defined future. In two qualities, or three qualities that I think are really important if a transformational leader is leading from his or her core, is to pair intention with attention. And so one of the things that I do each and every day when I meditate as a transformational leader is I set the intention for the day and the intention for each and every meeting that I'm going to have with a quality of attention to the moment and attention to three qualities that I think are really important of awareness. One is a transformational leader needs to have a focus, and a focus in the moment, but also a focus towards the future. And transformational leaders also, they need to cultivate, and that's where I think mindfulness meditation comes in, or any form of meditation or spiritual practice, is they need to cultivate the capacity to concentrate, to sit quietly, and to be comfortable at what I call resting into the emptiness. Because in the emptiness, there's this profound, creative, fertile void. And in Buddhism, there's a sutra called the Prajnaparamita Sutra. And it says, from no-thingness, which is emptiness, evolves somethingness, and from somethingness, it returns to no-thingness. And so a transformational leader really has to get really comfortable at spending time visiting, going into deep inquiry into the nature of the emptiness of the fertile void. And that comes about through being able to, in a laser-like manner, with great precision over time, have a very enhanced quality that she or he cultivates of concentration. And then the third quality is presence. Presence is the capacity to settle your nervous system and settle into your own being and be completely and totally comfortable with what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are you good at doing, and what are you not good at doing. Transformational leaders, since we're involved in helping to transform people and organizations and even nations now, we need to be able to be really comfortable at what are we good at and what are we not good at.
Thank you so much, Ron. And Ora, why do you think this kind of leadership is so important in the world today?
Well, I think that Ron describes the transformational leader so well. And first and foremost, the responsibility of the transformational leader and the time that the transformational leader has taken to cultivate their own skills to be a qualified leader. I think that the times that we are in right now, there is really a call to action for a transformational leader. We need to have leaders that really do understand the needs of people. They, through their own exploration of self in all the ways that Ron has enumerated so well, they know that by going deep within the self and what is required to become a transformational leader is the very way in which you can lead others. We need it now because we're living in a time where there is a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of not knowing what is real and what is not real. You know, these are very delicate times, and if ever there was a need for leadership, it is now. I think that what a transformational leader understands is that we can't lead in the ways that have not worked for us up to now. A transformational leader knows that what hasn't worked in the past must be changed so that it can work effectively in the present. You know, one of my favorite quotes is the Albert Einstein quote that we cannot wish to solve the problems that have not worked for us with the same thinking that we've used for them. We have to come up with new solutions, and a transformational leader of this time that we're in right now knows that, and knows that they will lead with new solutions for the problems that we are facing today.
Yeah, that's very well said, Laura, and I really appreciate that. Now, at this point in history, I think we're at an extraordinary crossroads that really calls us to really step forward as transformational leaders. And it's so essential that you stay true to what it is that you really want to do. How do you want to have a creative and impactful impact on the world right here and now? And to do that, you have to have a transformational leader needs to have a rigorous daily self-inquiry where they're fearlessly becoming and inquiring into who and what is their true self and who and what is the core that the leader leads from. And a good leader has to have vision. A good leader has to have fire in her belly with ambition and a desire to be a creative and positive influence in the world. Drive is necessary. Transformational leaders, it's the utmost of importance is to stay in alignment and in integrity. So to have alignment and integrity, it means that you have to wed those qualities with what I call genuine creative authenticity. And in the world that we live in today, some of our leaders have no integrity, they don't even know what authenticity looks like if it hit them in the head. Mm-hmm. And a transformational leader is also an excellent communicator. She or he listens before they speak, and before they speak, they listen to what is going on inside of him or herself and what is going on with the people that are speaking to them. And over time, the more that a transformational leader cultivates the quality of being able to concentrate and have a spiritual practice or discipline, there's an evolution naturally in all transformational leaders, where you have a sense that there's a deep and abiding inner wisdom, that there's a quality of alignment between their actions and their words. So I think harmony and integration between what somebody says and how they live their life as a leader is a very key ingredient in terms of measuring how aligned or misaligned, or how in the flow of one's integrity a transformational leader is, or how they're not really in the flow of their integrity, that they speak about all of these excellent qualities, but the way that he or she may be living their life is completely out of alignment with that.
I couldn't agree with you more, Ron. That's such an important point that you're bringing up, using words like integrity and the idea of leadership, that taking responsibility of leadership, and that there is a cohesiveness. It is congruent that the words of which a transformational thinks and says, they have to be held up to a standard that their actions and their behavior really represents leadership. You know, we can no longer support and condone behavior that's duplicitous. Do you know? I mean, we've had many leaders, as we know, that spoke well. We've had many candidates on the campaign trail that have promised us things that they would do. And we're at a time right now where, you know, action speaks everything. Action is really the representation of a thought leader's ideas, opinions, and visions. We must see it in action. We cannot just see it in words or hear it in words. A transformational leader of our time must embody and imbibe that wholeness of who they are. We don't have any area, any room anymore for a transformational leader not, if you will, walking their talk.
You know, Ora, that takes us right into the second area of discussion, embodying the qualities of a transformational leader. Do you want to expand on that?
Yes, you know, the qualities of a transformational leader, I believe that we have a much higher precedent that we must, you know, abide by. We have seen a lot of contradictions and a lot of duplicitous behavior amongst people and leaders, and I don't believe that we want to tolerate or accept that behavior going forward. You know, the qualities of a transformational leader are very apparent to us because they do put into actions the words of which they speak. They do actualize and manifest the things that they promise. We have put a lot of faith in our leaders, and we have seen that a lot of the leadership has not really actualized what has been promised. We no longer want to tolerate that. I believe that the qualities of a transformational leader today is excellence personified. It's truth personified. It's light and love personified. We must have leaders today that really embody true leadership, that they can lead us How do we want to be led? The qualities of the leader should have the very things that we need for successful leadership. Qualities like honesty, a quality that is so important that Ron mentioned, integrity, moral values, a moral compass. They must be able to adhere to all those standards that we know have no margin for error. They must represent those qualities that really are about excellence and truth and honesty. And again, integrity, very important quality for a transformational leader to possess.
And so, Ron, what is the difference between a wise leader and a non-wise leader?
Well, I'd like to jump into that, but I wanted to just add a few things first, Ben, to what Ora just said. And I think mindful leaders, they live from a space where they create the following focus. One is they have a clear intention. So in my book, Wise Mind, Open Mind, I write about that mindfulness helps you to create a mind strength. And I think from a place of having a clear and an open mind, the transformational leader is able to set very, very clear intentions. And I have a quote that I live by every day, and I start my meditation with, and it's set your mind on what you want, and it will manifest. Set your mind on what you want, and anything can be possible from a creative place. So one excellent, important quality of a transformational leader is intention. The second is we need to look at our leaders and ourselves from a place of two. Do we have a capacity for self-reflection? Are we able to sit comfortably and enter into the quiet stillness and to observe, to cultivate what in Buddhist psychology we call the witnessing awareness, or the observing, objective observing ego? 3, does a transformational leader embrace and live from a place of receptivity? And receptivity it's a yin, it's a feminine energy. And if you think of creativity and you think of birth and death, I see the cosmos and I see everything that comes from a female energy first. You know, creation is a feminine energy. And I think transformational leaders need to be in touch, whether male and or female, with their own inner receptivity, their own inner femininity, that sense of being able to be soft, to be receptive, to open to that of which is already unexplored, or to open into the unknown, and to be willing to receive or accept anything that's new and anything that's possible. I think it was about 12 years ago at the Davos Leadership Conference in Switzerland. Al Gore, who was vice president at the time, could have been longer than 12 years ago, he was seen carrying Ken Wilber, who is a prolific transpersonal psychologist and probably the most preeminent and prolific thinker and writer of all of these ideas that we're really talking about. And Vice President Gore was seen carrying one of Ken Wilber's books called A Brief History of Everything. And at the time, they asked him and both President Clinton what were they reading that was significantly influencing their capacity to lead, and they both cited Ken Wilber, which was, to me, was extremely exciting and touching and hopeful that here are our politicians, the guys in the suits, And they're involved in the same level of inquiry that we've been involved in for 40 or 50 years from the spiritual perspective.
Mm.
And then fourth quality of a transformational leader that I think is just so important and essential is resourcefulness. Transformational leaders need to be able to dig down deep and to access states of internal awareness, to access states of creativity, and most importantly, to access that of which needs to become what I call imaginable. And in order to do that, a transformational leader needs to spend time not only in meditation each day, but also connecting and receiving from their core, from their creative unconscious, from their internal being, from their, some people like to call it their higher self. And what I call it is receiving from a place of open mind, which is the reservoir of unbridled, endless, undifferentiated, boundless creativity. And I think transformational leaders, they really need to lead from their core and come from a place of their core. And then just two other quick points on transformational leadership, other qualities is, one is she needs to stay when she's leading on purpose and have a forward pointing focus, and also to embrace a sense of aliveness and resiliency, that if there's been a breakdown or a chaos, as we have in our current culture of politics, and in the United States, we have a division, left and right. We need to have an ability to bring polarities together to become a unifier. And Carl Jung, and Ora can talk about this also, who's one of the very first and great transpersonal psychologists, he said that leaders need to be able to embrace their polarities of both the light and the dark. The light, that of which is creative, and then the dark is what we refer to in Jungian psychology as the shadow.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I love what you're saying, Ron, and you bring up so many points. First of all, I want to just say, I love that you refer to the transformational leader. You often mention she and the feminine. And I know we're speaking equally of the transformational leader being a man or a woman. I don't think that's what we're saying as far as it just being focused on the female or the woman. But these are aspects of the self that everybody embodies. Living a life out of balance, which is what I feel we have been witnessing for so long. The integration, as you mentioned, about the feminine, the masculine, the integration of the conscious and the unconscious, as well as the shadow aspects of the self. For me, a transformational leader has really looked within. I can't even imagine how we've tolerated so long leaders that isn't even required of them to participate actively in the inner journey. If we hold that so valuable for our own journey on self-realization, how is it that we don't require that of our leaders? A transformational leader will have done the inquiry. I talk about that in my book, Says Who? Know thyself, know your thoughts, all of them, not just the pretty ones. We must go within. We must know what the thinking mind is doing. We must know what our thoughts are telling us. You're not going to have a pilot fly you on a plane that's incapable or unqualified to successfully land that plane. Our transformational leaders have got to, and I really say this emphatically, they must know themselves. They must know all aspects of the self. I believe wholeheartedly that the transformational leader, and I do feel very hopeful about the generation of the millennials, coming forward and witnessing what isn't working anymore, what does not serve us anymore, and recognizing through their own inquiry what I'm witnessing. And Ben, you're part of that, the journey of self-inquiry, to go within and know thyself, know who we are, so that we can lead effectively, so that we can be wholesome, that we can be clear-minded in what, as Ron talked about, our intentions and our purpose. We must know with certainty what our intentions are and what motivates us to want to actualize our purpose. So these are very important points I think we're bringing up, is the idea of a leader today knowing who they are, taking a deep dive within, and being able to understand the self in all of its aspects, in all of its entirety. We must reconnect what is broken. We must reconnect to the wholeness of who we are, so that we can lead effectively and that we can have a new generation moving forward of transformational leadership.
Yes, and building on that is one of my hopes, that by joining with the Institute for Transformational Thinking, the Open Mind Training Institute, is that over time, that all of us, Ben and myself and Ora and Jules, is that we'll begin to create transformational leadership training programs at all
Yes, yes.
from education, universities, colleges, businesses, .com companies, for politicians, for executive and business leaders. We will take them into that deep dive, so that we'll give them tools and we'll give them a new mindset that is very solidly grounded both in leadership and in psychology and in spirituality, in Ora's program of the training of thought leaders, and the training of the patterns of cultivating new ways of thinking vis-a-vis the Says Who method. And there's an old ancient Chinese proverb, and I love it. It says, "I curse you. May you live in an important age." I curse you. May you live in an important age. And I think we're living in a pretty important age now, where if we could only imagine our leaders getting up in the morning, like all of us, and sitting, and instead of spending their time twittering away in the bathroom, they were spending 20, 30, 40 minutes meditating.
Yes.
The extraordinary impact on the wider morphogenetic field of psycho-spiritual and leadership intelligence, how that would spread, so that each and every time that a leader spoke, it came from a place of mindful inquiry. But getting back to Ben's point about asking me, okay, what are some of the qualities of a wise leader? One essential quality of a wise leader and a transformational thinker is they do the right thing, rather than that they do things right. Another quality is we're open to mastery. And mastery means that at every step of your journey, you're always returning to beginner's mind. You're never sitting there saying, "I've already arrived." If you take on that stance in whatever discipline or leadership role you're in Zen we say a person or a leader or a teacher then becomes wooden. It's dense. There's no aliveness in a piece of wood. And what we have to do is you have to throw it on the fire. And there's an old Zen saying, effective and masterful leaders are leaders that we burn. We burn upon the fire, so that everything moves from a state of death, rebirth, creative transformation. Death, rebirth, creative transformation. Transformational leaders also, they tend to want to come from a place of source and a place of innovation. And non-wise leaders oftentimes want to block, they want to interfere, they want to do things right, rather than take the opportunity to make mistakes and then to learn from those mistakes. And transformational leaders also have to have qualities of where they respect the people that they work with. They come from a place of appreciation, acknowledgement. The phrase confirmation is something that they radiate from their being. It's not just something that they think is a good thing to do. A transformational leader is also, as I see it, is a really, I have a Zen garden around my home. And I see a transformational leader as a gardener. It's somebody that is really interested in growing people, in growing future leaders.
Yes.
And I know that, or you could talk a little bit about this, because you work with so many millennials and you're so dedicated to growing the people around you.
Well, I love your garden analogy. I just mentioned that recently. That is the way in which we can see our mind flourish. If we tend to our minds in the way in which we would tend to a garden, we would witness growth and flourishing. Do you know?
Yeah.
And I think that if we regard our thinking mind with tremendous respect, and we value the power and the blessings of the thinking mind, and know that that which we can give birth from our thinking mind, I say visions begin with a single thought, like the seed that is waiting to grow into that oak tree. Do you know, all the great thinkers, all the great visionaries began with a single thought in their mind, and from there they took that vision and actualized it outside of themselves and created it and manifested that vision for all of us to benefit from. I mean, we could list and enumerate all of the great thinkers and all the great visionaries, that they were the leaders of thinking a new way, of paving a new way, of bringing their inventions, of bringing their symphonies, of bringing their physics, of bringing all of the beautiful visions that they had forward out into the world, so that the world could change and transform. And that's what I'm hoping for right now. And I bring up the millennials because you are such a vital generation of hope. And I'm witnessing that the millennials, and certainly working with Ben and working with Jules and working with Dimitri, that you are valuing that possibility of that transformation really can make a difference, that the world needs you now more than ever, that we are very much on the precipice of changes, and that we can decide now very carefully which direction we want to go in. And that's why, again, transformational leaders are needed now than ever before. I feel very hopeful in that possibility. I feel very hopeful by offering up and by creating, the Institute for Transformational Thinking and all the things that can manifest from that. It's endless possibilities. Do you know? People are ripe. People are ready. We must awaken now. And I'm seeing that people are wanting to. They just need to know how to awaken within themselves, which is why, and again, Ron, you've brought it up so beautifully, and I mention it about, in the book, Says Who, I say, be the creator and master of your internal dialogue, which creates your reality. Why it is so important to go in for ourselves and the commitment that we have to a spiritual journey of awakening, and that we must expect that now of our leaders. We must raise the bar higher. Do you know? This is our new benchmark, our benchmark of hope, our new benchmark of transformation. This
Yeah.
is really what we must look towards the future with.
And transformational aura means that transformational leaders, they come from a place and they operate and they live from a place in their being of yes. And they wed yes with receptivity. And in my book, Wise Mind, Open Mind, I tell a little story about when John Lennon was in London. One night he was bored and he went to an art studio. And there was an unknown artist to England named Yoko Ono. And he walked into the art studio, and there were two things that really stood out. One was there was an apple, and there was slices, and it said, "Take a bite." And then the second thing, in the very far back of this art studio, in this room, it was all painted white, was a ladder. And there was a little table, and it said, "Climb up and look at the ceiling." And when John Lennon climbed to the top of the ladder, there was a magnifying glass on a long piece of thread. And it said, "Look up." And he looked up, and in tiny little letters on this giant white ceiling, it said, "Yes." He started chuckling and laughing because he said he thought it was going to say "piss off" or, something like that. But he was so taken with that yes.
Yeah. Yes. I love that. I love that story. And I love the whole notion of yes. I have on the IFTT Instagram, I wrote, a transformational leader thinks outside the box because there are no corners. A transformational leader is open and expansive. I love the story of yes, saying yes to the possibilities, saying yes to the universe, saying yes to doing this differently than we've ever done it before. That excites me. I want people to connect to their own fire in the belly and be excited about being a part of this transformational movement and knowing that each and every one of us, let us all walk up that ladder, as you talked about with John Lennon. Let us all look up and see that yes. And with a resounding yes, say, let's do this. Let's just go for it. We can change the world. That beautiful Gandhi saying that I say ad nauseum, be the change you want to see in the world. To be the change, you must change your thinking. You must be transformational in your thinking. Be a part of the change by connecting to your own thinking mind and transforming those thoughts into something that can be useful out in the world.
Yeah, yes. And transformational leaders and transformational thinkers, I think we all operate from a place where we really appreciate the importance of that there are a variety of other daily disciplines that we need to attend to. For example, like the management of our own attention. Mm-hmm. As we harness and we manage our attention throughout the day, it will give us a really pure quality of focus and language, so that when we're talking, when we're listening, we're operating from truth, we're operating from respect, we're operating from integrity with both ourselves and those of which the people that we're leading. And the management of attention also gives us a capacity to cultivate over time, place, and space, past, present, and future, a compelling future-oriented vision where there's hope, where there's infinite possibility.
Right.
So we've naturally moved into our third area of discussion, confidently leading transformational change in your life. So Ora, if you could expand on that for our students and participants, tips on leading transformational change in our own lives.
With all that Ron and I have talked about, and I'm feeling so inspired, every day I want to wake up with that inspiration of what is possible for this road of transformation. The confidence that a transformational leader leads with is life-changing. Do you know, having the knowing, having the confidence to lead, to move onward, to create this change that I mentioned that Gandhi spoke of, to be that change. Wake up each day with, as Ron mentioned, your intention, knowing what it is you want to fulfill out in the world. What is your purpose? Knowing with confidence that you can make that change out in the world, that you wake each day. And I talk about thought alignment. That is one of the techniques that I will be sharing with my online thought coach certification program. Waking up with an alignment with what our purpose is, that our thoughts must serve that purpose, that our thoughts must fuel our intentions, and being confident in knowing that you can make a difference by being a transformational leader, which not only can change your life, but it can help change the world.
And that waking up, Ora and Ben, is at this point in history, it compels us to kind of rise up and to not only be in our integrity and in our alignment with a compelling vision, but by embracing those qualities as a transformational leader, you become attractive and you cultivate an attractiveness where people, they want to play in your playground with you. They want to be on your team.
Right.
They'll gladly get on board with your vision and the vision of the Institute. And transformational leaders, when we're leading from integrity and alignment, we're really involved in enrolling people rather than trying to control or instill fear. The qualities of enrollment and invitation and join into the inquiry and join into my mission as a symbol have deeply invitational aspects to them. It's like when you invite people to come over and have tea with you and sit and come to, we recently, a couple of months ago, we had a mastermind group at Ora's house out in Malibu. And there's an invitational quality that creates an aliveness and an attractiveness. And that's what transformational leaders are interested in cultivating, that sense of enthusiasm around whatever her agenda is or his context for changing the United States of America, or changing the world, or changing, Snapchat or Apple. This compelling quality of being invitational.
Yes. I love that, Ron. And that's really what we're offering up. And that is an invitation. It is a open, wide, expansive invitation. And it says, lead with us. Come lead with us. Each and every one of you is and can be a leader, a transformational leader. This invitation is so open-armed. Do you know? It's
Right.
saying, be the best that you can be. Be transformational in yourself, and then bring that forward so that we individually and collectively and globally can change the world. Do you know? This is the invitation for true transformation.
And that invitation for true transformation that can change the world starts with, we need to manage and bring into alignment the natural creative flow of our own self-experience, where we operate from a place of unity, of harmony, of having an authentic desire to grow harmony in our company, on our teams, in our institutes, in our politics, and that we want to actively energize the entire field that we're operating within. And transformational leaders, they don't look for what's wrong. What I say is transformational leaders ask the question, what's needed here?
Right. Yes.
What's missing?
Right.
As a possibility, not as a negativity.
Absolutely. Transformational leaders are solution oriented. They're looking for ways to make it work. They're looking for ways to make things happen. They're looking for ways to raise the consciousness on this planet that we all inhabit.
And in this theme of, if you're looking for from a positive, optimistic place for what's missing as a possibility, the leader has to stand for something. She or he has to have a compelling quality to call forth from people the ultimate possibility and to energize that in each and every interaction that you're having in every day, to know that your words are listened to and
Yes.
your behavior is watched. And
Yes.
do you walk your talk?
Yes, exactly, Ron. So true. And that is the mindful awareness of oneself, one's thoughts, one's being, and all that exists around you. It's being fully awake.
And some of the leaders that have really influenced me personally in my life, I grew up in Boston, and so I didn't get to shake hands with him, but I was, about 20 feet from John F. Kennedy once when he was running for the presidency. My father took me down to a football game in Dorchester, and he was involved in Boston politics. But the leaders that have really been compelling for me, because they've had an integration between what they taught and what they stood for, were like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, JFK, Winston Churchill, Abraham Lincoln. These are all leaders that had an incredibly strong stand and vision.
Right. Exactly. And the transformational leaders today look to those leaders. And from those leaders, they choose to lead, in the footsteps of a great leader and take that legacy forward. I had the good fortune of meeting the Holiness Dalai Lama years ago, and I felt the same thing in his presence, that he just radiated nothing but light and love, and talk about transformation and transcendence, to continue transforming, the transformational commitment for humanity and mankind. He so imbibed that and embodied that. And it was such an inspiration for me. These are the leaders that we talk about. These are the leaders. This is the type of leadership that we need today more than ever. And transformational leaders can be that.
Yes. And transformational leaders also really embody, in embodied leadership. I'm glad you used that phrase, Ora. It's so important to not only have it as a value, but to actually embody it in your psychophysiology. So that, for example, leaders need to cultivate trust, and they need to be trustable. And they need to mine in their core self into the resource of trust. And trust is something that gets generated across time, place, and space. It doesn't happen instantly. And a mark of a really solid transformational leader who has integrity and authenticity is one that has really good, clean, and clear boundaries. There's a sense of honesty. There's a sense of being committed to the truth of their core integrity. That integrity needs to be front-loaded first if we're going to change this cultural and this worldly mess that we're in. We have to come from a place where we're in alignment with ourself. And for me, and I've said it earlier in the talk here today with all of us, is set your mind on what you want and it will manifest. Set the self. Connect to your own core being each and every day. For me, and Ben, and Jules, and Ora, mindfulness happens to be our pathway, but it can be contemplative prayer. If you're Jewish, it can be, going to your synagogue. There's 108 different spiritual pathways to connect and come into alignment each and every day.
Right. Yes.
And it's so essential. When I was in high school, I played in a band. And one of the very first things that you learn if you're going to create unification and harmony on stage is you have to tune your instrument. And we, as transformational leaders and coaches and healers, we are our instrument. And so we must tune our instrument of self. And some form of spiritual practice, I think, is essential.
Yes. Exactly, Ron. To care for the instrument, to take time. Contemplation is something that I've been exploring lately. It's a word we don't hear very often anymore. And, whether you're a meditator or you're not, spend time with yourself. Sit quietly is what I tell people, even if it's for 10 minutes a day, to be with yourself, whether it's quieting your mind through meditation or it's contemplation, and looking and observing your thoughts closely and understanding your thinking process and your thinking mind and how to refine your thoughts so that they can, in fact, be transformational thoughts that can, again, as we've said, change the world, change our lives, change the world.
Yes, and as we change our thoughts, as we change the thinking mind from negative and unwholesome to positive and wholesome, creative and constructive thought patterns, as we change those fundamental thought patterns, which is, the core of Says Who and the Institute for Transformational Thinking, as we change those thought patterns in our own mind, as we change our mind, it changes our being. And as we change our being, it has the capacity to positively influence not only a few beings, but to think in terms of 10,000 beings, and then 1,000,000 beings, and then 10 million beings. And that was one of the fundamental principles that the Buddha taught very, very early on after his enlightenment, is change your thinking mind and your being will change, and then your being can positively influence and transform and change other Buddha beings into beings of wisdom, into beings of truth, into beings of inspiration, into beings of transformational leaders.
Yes.
And
yes. So true, Ron. So true.
I know you two extraordinary thought leaders could share transformational revelations with us all day. We are nearing the end of our online seminar today. Thank you both so much for sharing your wisdom with us at the Institute, and all those transformational leaders in training who joined us for this online class. Ora, did you want to take a second and share with us a little bit about your Thought Coach certification training program?
Sure. First of all, I want to say again, Ben, thank you for moderating this very special conversation that I was able to have today with my dear friend and mentor, the amazing Dr. Ronald Alexander, who has been a true mindfulness mentor for me. So Ron, thank you for joining me today. Conversation about transformation. And yes, we could continue on
all day.
I know all day, but I know that time is of the essence now and we're winding down. I'm very excited through the Institute for Transformational Thinking to offer up my first online program, the Thought Coach Certification Training Program. And this is what we've been talking about. This is really calling all transformational leaders. This is saying, come lead with us. Join me for this extraordinary 4-week program where you can begin this incredibly important inquiry of the self to know your thinking mind as well as you possibly can so that you can put transformation into effect, first and foremost for yourself, and then become a transformational coach, a thought coach, so that you can be a leader to others and help them awaken to their own thinking mind. It is going to be an incredible journey that we are going to take together on this path of transformational thinking.
Yes, our team has put so much effort into taking Ora's wisdom, the teachings in her book, and everything into an extraordinary 4-week program with online video workshops, live calls, daily lessons, and everything you need to launch as a thought coach. Everything you need to know about coaching ethics, working with clients, beginning that process, and what to do in different circumstances. There are over 20 different tools and techniques that Ora has designed specifically for developing healthy thinking habits. So for more information on Ora Nadrich, Dr. Ronald Alexander, and the Institute for Transformational Thinking, as well as the Thought Coach Certification Training Program, please visit theift.org. Thank you all for being here. Thanks again.